I'm gonna make a review show. Hey guys, Max FewTrades here, and as previously stated before, I am going to start up a review show. What kind of a review show? A video game review show. I know, right? What a novel concept. No one on Earth's ever thought of that before, but seeing as how my creativity well is completely run dry, I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. Of course, if we're going to be making a video game review show, well then I guess I'm gonna need to pick out a game now, aren't I? But what on earth kind of game should I play? First episode. It's gotta be something nobody else has done before, at least nobody that I'm currently aware of. I guess I should just pick something that looks like it's just calling to me, like it's asking to be judged by me of some sort. What's this? Huh! Castlevania Judgement. Why not?
Alright, so I'll be the first to admit that I don't know everything there is to know about Castlevania, but I do know the general idea of the series. A whip called the Vampire Killer is passed down generation after generation in the Belmont family, and is used in the never-ending battle to slay the immortal demon Dracula. Every time Dracula is killed, he resurrects himself every 100 years, and the latest member of the Belmont family needs to rise to the occasion and kill him again. Simple enough, nothing too tough to understand there. However, the Castlevania games are traditionally platformers, where you'll run around in a castle and hit stuff with your whip looking for Dracula. But Judgment is not a platformer. It's a fighting game. So how on earth do you make a game series known for looking like this and turn it into something more like this? I think it'll be especially tricky considering all of the most well-known Castlevania characters all existed hundreds and even some thousands of years apart.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm genuinely interested as to how this game is gonna even play. But the reviews I've seen of it don't really bode well. It seems like most people I found on the internet generally consider this game to be a complete and total waste of time. Not really good, but not really bad either. Just kind of middle of the road, really. So I guess it's my job to determine whether or not these people are correct. Is this game worthy of the Belmont name? Or is it worthy of the harsh judgment that this game has gotten? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's play us some Castlevania Judgement!
The game starts out with an honestly really cool pre-rendered movie that shows off a rather feminine-looking man with a monocle and a very fluffy owl. But the main show of the video is a battle between two very feminine-looking men, one with a sword and the other a whip. The fight goes exactly like you think it would, with the man with a whip flailing it around like a ribbon and the guy with a sword and really not putting up much of a fight. Eventually, the man with the sword gets sick of the guy and just blows him the hell up with a huge magical fireball. We're then treated to some lovely shots of Dracula's castle, and then the monocled man stabs a clock tower with his own sword with a clock inside it, which creates a huge boom and appears to make all of time get really screwy. All joking aside, this is actually a pretty cool little movie before the game, and it's gotten me interested in just what it is I've gotten myself into.
Of course, that's just the opening cinematic, and it's gonna take a whole lot more than some monocles and owls if it's gonna impress me. But you've got me interested, game. Please, do go on.
Well, so far so good when it comes to the menu. We seem to have a fair amount of options to pick from. We have the standard arcade mode, where you try to beat up every member of the game's cast as fast as you possibly can, a castle mode that provides mission-like battles that I'll get into in a little bit, but most curious of all, the game actually has a story mode. Now, if you were not aware, fighting games are kinda infamous for either not having a story to them at all, or having a story that's really incredibly hollow and exists for no other reason than to try and give you some semblance of an idea as to why all these characters are beating the tar out of each other when they would otherwise have no point to do so.
So basically, my expectations are not high, but I'll give it a shot anyway. I mean, who knows? It could be something great.
The game's story focuses around the monocle-clad man from before, who's apparently named Aeon, a character who, according to the game's instruction booklet, has not appeared in a Castlevania game before this one.
So this game centers around an entirely new character that nobody's ever heard of before, instead of one of the almost hundreds of other Castlevania characters they could have chosen from. Well, this is off to a great start.
Anyway, Aeon here is the Guardian of Time. He has existed since the beginning of time, and it's his job to make sure nobody messes with the space-time continuum. Well, it just so happens that an evil demon wants to destroy all of time forever for reasons we're really never given. The presence of this demon causes a huge rift in time that causes time itself to collapse. In response to this, Aeon summons 13 of Castlevania's most powerful characters and pits them against each other in combat. Whoever is still left standing at the end of the tournament will move on to face the demon. Because obviously, what would you do in that situation?
Okay, so the story is completely stupid, but when you think about it, time travel was really the only practical way they were going to get all of these characters in the same game, so I suppose I can give it a pass. As long as the gameplay is good, I don't really see a point in complaining. I mean, really, if you bought a fighting game for the story, you've got some seriously messed up priorities.
Alright, so first and foremost, what kind of warriors do we get to play as? Well, first we have... Oh hey! That whip-flailing weirdo from the intro was Simon! Huh. He looks kinda different than the last few times I saw him. Next up, we have Dracula's half-human, half-vampire son, Alucard. Which is kinda weird. I never knew vampirism was carried through genetics. Who knew? Next is the mighty and savage werewolf, Cornell. Kind of a weird name, but hey, we can play as a wolf man, so I have no right to complain. After him, we have Carmilla. Wow. Hey, lady? Aren't you cold? The outfit does not seem either warm or comfortable, so what the hell? This is Carmilla, by the way. No relation to the chicken of the same name. She's a vampire and one of Dracula's most powerful henchmen. Or henchwoman, as it were.
Although, personally, I think Dracula keeps Carmilla around for completely different reasons. If you know what I'm saying. She bakes some amazing cookies.
Next up is Gollum, a random pile of living flesh and metal, not unlike Frankenstein's monster, honestly. Kinda doubt that's a coincidence. Next is... Death. Like, actually the Grim freaking Reaper. That Death. I mean, okay, yeah, he was in the older games as a boss, but still, he's the Grim freaking Reaper! I think he's at a distinct advantage here. After that, we have Trevor, Sypha, and Grant, the main characters from Castlevania 3, all of which look very different since the last I saw them. After them, we have Shanoa. She is definitely a person, I guess. Next up, we have a couple of preteens named Erik and Maria. You might be thinking that it's kinda weird to have little kids in a fighting game next to other characters like Death, but trust me, there are much weirder things about these two. I'll get into that in a little bit. Lastly, we have the Count himself, the dreaded, feared, and downright evil that is Dracula! Yes, the pure being of evil incarnate.
I'm sorry, but are you seriously trying to tell me that Dracula, with all of his power and might, can't even grow a decent mustache? I mean, look at that thing, it's absolutely pathetic. I grew a better one when I was 14.
Alright, so we have our cast. How do we go about punching some things? Well, you might be surprised. The fighting takes place in a free-roaming 3D environment, where you can run around your opponent and break stuff in the background. You have a standard combo, a running combo, a jump attack, and a special item you can find by breaking stuff. These items are all actually weapons from the other Castlevania games, like a dagger, an axe, a stopwatch that freezes time for a second, and various other things. They even run on heart power just like in the games, which is actually kinda cool. The problem with them, however, is that they are almost entirely useless. Every character already has a much better attack in their moveset than any of the items they can find, so you will more often than not forget you even have them. Hell, I rarely saw the computers use them, they're so useless. The last thing to bring up with combat is that every character has a cinematic super move they can perform when their super meter is full. These moves range from cool looking, to freakishly morbid, to trying way too hard to be funny. At first, these moves are really cool to watch and are quite a bit of fun. However, it's the same dang clip over and over again, and it gets really boring to watch very quickly. Made worse by the fact that the cinematics are completely impossible to skip, forcing you to watch them every single time. So you might be thinking, just don't use them, right? Well, the thing is, all of these super moves completely destroy half of your opponent's life bar, and getting the meter full enough to use the super move is ridiculously easy. It fills up whenever you do anything, including being hit. So the move practically guarantees victory and is pathetically easy to use, so you would be stupid not to use it. So you better really like watching those fight cinematics because you're going to be seeing them a lot. Fights barely last long at all, by the way. 3 quick combos and a super move later and you'll win just about every fight. A match will almost never last longer than 30 seconds, so basically the combat in this game really has nothing to do with skill so much as who can push the attack button long enough to fill up their super bar and destroy their opponent first. What makes this whole situation even worse is that the characters are freakishly unbalanced. Some characters like Dracula and Erik are next to impossible to beat. Yeah, that's right, Erik, the little kid from before. The kid has freakishly huge range with that massive spear he's throwing around and can just keep stabbing you over and over again, keeping you from ever fighting back. And then there's Dracula. Good lord, then there's Dracula. First of all, he never flinches. Most characters reel back in pain when they get hit, but not Dracula. He just stands there and takes it like a boss. He also has a fireball that cuts through all of your moves, and a grab that's almost impossible to avoid. Oh, and yeah, Dracula doesn't jump. He just kind of floats. He doesn't really ever come down unless you hit him.
So basically, even though you get 14 characters to play as, if you want to win easily and reliably, you're only ever going to play as 2 of them at most. And the worst part is the game actually knows this and forces you to unlock everyone else.
When you first start the game's story mode, you can only play as Simon and Alucard. You need to unlock everybody else. And the only way to do that is by beating story mode with every character. Even the bad ones.
Okay, so I only briefly talked about the game's story mode, but there's actually a bit more to it, and it's kind of stupid and convoluted, so I'll try to explain it to the best of my ability for you guys.
Okay, so you need to beat story mode with every single character to unlock the other characters. However, every time you beat a character's story, you see Aeon collect something called a soul key. There are 13 soul keys in total, 1 for every character.
So you might be asking yourself, what are the soul keys? Where do they come from? How do they help Aeon? And why does he seem to find one every time a man whips a little girl upside the head 100 times? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. It never tells us. The game never bothers to explain what the soul keys are, or why Aeon actually even needs them, but you do get something really nifty if you manage to get all 13 of them. Want to know what it is?
Well, if you play through a character's story, you'll notice that they just kind of end. They don't really resolve anything for the characters themselves. Not really. But if you beat the game with every single character and get all of the soul keys, you win the ability to play through the game with all of the characters again, but this time they actually get endings this time.
You unlock the ability to play as every character again, except this time you actually get to see their ending. What?
Well, you see, the soul keys are needed to get through a magical gate where the demon who wants to destroy time is in. So Aeon summoned all of these warriors to pass a bunch of trials, and when the warrior beats the trials, Aeon gets another one of the keys he needs to open the door. But there's one last catch. Only one person can go through the gate and fight the time demon, which is the second reason he made all of these characters fight. To whittle them down until only one was left. That way, only the strongest warrior could go and fight the demon. So you play through a character story for a second time, with absolutely no changes added, by the way. Except now, instead of it just ending, Aeon tells the character you are playing as everything I just told you and challenges you to a fight to see which one of you two is strong enough to fight the demon. Which does not make any sense, seeing as how the first trial for every character is a fight with Aeon, so he already knows I'm stronger than him, so why do I need to fight him again? Well, whatever, you push his ass off the clock tower and go fight the demon, and it's just some kind of glowy skeleton.
Wow. That's shockingly underwhelming.
Well, fine. You go in and punch him for a while and he eventually dies. Somehow. The world is saved and you finally get to see your character's ending. It's not even a good ending either. It's just a paragraph of text telling you what the character did after saving all of time. We don't even get to see it, it just tells us that it happens. And if you really think about this entire situation, none of it makes any real sense. Think about it. If Simon beat all of the other characters and completes his trials, by doing that, he has ensured that every other character has failed their trials by just losing to him. And if they lost their trials, how do they go on to complete their own quests and get a soul key of their own? They can't! That would be impossible because Simon beat all of them. Time traveler or not, none of this makes any sense.
You know, This really wouldn't be so bad if all of the characters' stories were interesting and compelling. But they just aren't.
Aeon manages to convince all these warriors to fight each other by promising them that if they do, they will find what they most desire. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. I mean, that's a pretty awesome prize, right?
Well, they would be, if these characters weren't complete jerks!
Here are a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. Simon. Simon fears he is simply living in the shadow of his much more famous ancestor, Trevor. So what he desires most is to meet his idol and legendary ancestor and beat the hell out of him! That's all he wants in the world? To beat up his great times 20 grandpa? Really? It's not just Trevor either. On his quest to find Trevor, Simon also meets Trevor's best friend Grant and wife Sypha. And when they don't tell this freak with a whip where to find Trevor, he beats the hell out of them too just for not telling him.
You know, for being the most well-known and beloved Castlevania hero, Simon's kind of a jackass.
Oh, but don't feel bad for any of these people Simon beats up. They're all a bunch of selfish jerks too. Grant's biggest regret is not admitting his feelings towards Sypha and letting Trevor marry her. So what does he do? He beats the hell out of both of them! And as for Sypha? Well, you see, she's a witch, and as a result, people tend to treat her poorly due to the fact that most witches are evil. So she sets out on a quest to clear her name and prove to everybody that not all of witches are evil. So you might be thinking that is a pretty noble and decent quest, right? Well, what happens when Sypha meets up with Cornell, a werewolf doing the exact same thing she is?
Werewolf, prepare to be cleansed!
Hold! Do not be fooled by my appearance. I am your...
Am I to trust your kind? You would say anything to get close, then strike without warning.
You are mistaken. I would never do such a thing.
Foul creature of darkness, repent before my power.
She flat out refuses to listen to him, assumes he's evil, and beats him up.
That is some seriously hypocritical garbage, Sypha. I mean, way to undermine everything you stand for.
Hear me, my lost sisters. I have punished one who began your persecution.
Well, of course, unless they're a werewolf or a vampire, in which case they are irredeemably evil and should be killed.
Okay, so I've rambled on for long enough about how some of these characters are completely despisable. But there's one more character I really need to talk to you about. Maria.
Maria is one seriously weird and creepy little girl. So while every other character's personal quest was kinda selfish or a little messed up, Maria is on a very special quest.
Do you want to know what Maria desires more than anything else in the world? The very thing she is able to... You want to know what Maria desires most in the world? The thing she's willing to fight vampires and werewolves just for the slight possibility of obtaining? What means more to her than anything else in the world?
I am. If you're here, you must be one as well.
They're huge.
Will you stop? These things only get in the way.
How can you say that? Those are a sacred gift! Even the vampires are bigger than mine! Just because you're hot doesn't mean you can be rude.
I think it's best I leave it at that.
There's only one thing left to talk about, really, and that's castle mode. You pick a character and go through a series of challenges in order to get through the castle and fight Dracula. Each challenge is something different. In one challenge, you just need to beat your opponent, and in another, you need to break all of the objects in a room without dying. And sometimes they'll even handicap you by boosting your enemy's strength or giving them regenerating health. Except sometimes they boost your strength or health, making the challenge completely easy and a waste of time. The only reason you would ever play castle mode is to unlock accessories that you can put on the characters. And while putting sunglasses on Gollum, putting 2 eye patches on Trevor, or turning Sypha into Cyclops from the X-Men is actually a lot of fun, the novelty, much like everything else in this game, wears really thin, really fast. You can also unlock concept art and music by beating castle mode, but honestly, most people aren't interested in doing a bunch of tedious missions just to unlock something they can easily find on Google.
So, after all of that, What do I personally think of Castlevania Judgement? It's okay.
The story is garbage and the combat is severely lacking, but it's still fun to play for a while. Pulling off all of the characters' neat moves and making them wear silly outfits is all fun and good for a while. But eventually you will have done everything the game offers and you'll just get bored.
So I guess all I really needed to tell you guys about this game was that I got it for Christmas in 2009. I played it for a couple days, but then I just put it on my shelf for a few years until I decided to review it. I think that pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna go put that back on my shelf.